All right, Cincinnati Bengals.
They're coming back.
Who basically their job this offseason was to hold it in place, hold this offense in place. Obviously, extended Jamar Chase, re-signed T. Higgins, re-signed Mike Gesicki, re-signed B.J. Hill. Some smaller additions. Tadaro Slayton comes over from the Packers to be a, pure nose tackle, a guy who can give you some first and second down snaps. Samaje Perine back in the fold there in Cincy. This one, though, it's the draft that kind of ruins it for me. I loved what they did. The T. Higgins deal was a coup, in my opinion, because if he hit the open market, he was getting $35 million a year just because that's where the desperation was. He didn't come close to that.
He'd get 35 a mil just based on their Chargers game last Sunday Night Football last year. I mean, he went for like 200 off of a quad injury.
Yeah, he is. I mean, as far as big receivers around the NFL go, he's right up there at the top. I mean, with his skill set, his ability to separate at his size and his ball skills, it's like he is the perfect complement to Jamar Chase in that offense. And I just need, obviously, Jermaine Burton to be the other perfect complement with his speed. But getting those two intact for the foreseeable future, massive win. After that, though, there was nothing that they did that I liked. there was not a lot to write home about. So I went B- because I did think the Higgins deal in and of itself is like an A+ deal for the Cincinnati Bengals. But after that, I didn't like the draft. I've talked about it a bunch. I think we could be sitting here a year from now and looking at this draft class and saying, like, I don't know if they made any sort of impact whatsoever. And that's the problem, is that you needed that. You needed guys who can do something for you right now with how bad your defense is. And you got a lot more questions than answers, in my opinion.
Yeah, they've been bleeding out defensively. That's a reason why a Triple Crown winner and a MVP caliber quarterback with a two-headed monster receiver is not in the play. They weren't in the playoffs last year. Joe Burrow, who was, in my opinion, the best quarterback in football last year, was not in the playoffs. It feels to me like what my dad used to talk about Dan Marino. He would say, Kyle, you don't understand how good this guy was, and people will never give him the credit he's due, because they just didn't win Super Bowls. And unfortunately, with the defense bleeding out like they did last year, and the firings of coaches, and Lou Anarumo out the door, who had the Chiefs by the balls a couple of years ago, you got to make immediate impacts in the draft. It's the only reason I don't give them an A. I'm going to give them a B+, because they got their guys signed. T. Higgins, it was stagecoach robbery. And obviously Jamar Chase, who I think is the best receiver in football. So you've got the two best guys in football, complemented with the best big guy in football currently in T. Higgins. Gesicki, Chase Brown. I mean, you find a way to continue to protect Joe, and you're going to be just fine. B+ for the Bengals.
All right, let's get to the Pittsburgh Steelers, where a eventful offseason that still isn't done yet. Obviously, we think they're going to add Aaron Rodgers, but have not done that just yet. So they added Mason Rudolph. He is your penciled-in starter as of right now. Obviously made the big move for DK Metcalf, trading from the Seattle Seahawks for a second-round pick, and then just made the big move trading George Pickens away for a third and a fifth to the Dallas Cowboys. So swapping out number one wide receivers there, and then losing your entire quarterback room of Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, losing a couple offensive linemen. James Daniels obviously hurt last year, but Dan Moore at left tackle, they planned for that. They have 2 first-rounders that they drafted the past 2 seasons who will be filling in at tackle position, even if Altanu was hurt most of his rookie season. So TBD on how he'll fare. But a lot of moving parts here, but I think the core is still very much intact for this Pittsburgh Steelers team. And I like their draft a little in that Derek Harmon was, I thought, a steal at 21, a perfect Steelers defensive lineman.
Yep.
The rest, you might
decade long, just glass eater.
Yes. And Caleb Johnson, a perfect scheme fit in the 3rd round, the Iowa running back. All that being said, though.
Jack Sawyer. You didn't even say Jack Sawyer. This guy terrorized the Oregon Ducks. Okay, I hated Jack Sawyer, and then I saw him get drafted by the Steelers in the 4th round, and I said, man, I can't wait to watch him play for that team.
He really is a Pittsburgh Steeler edge rusher. I'll say this, though. I gave him a C+. I thought this was a defining offseason in that you had to get over the hump. You had to improve. You were, a comfortable tier 2 behind the Ravens last year. You were not competitive for a Super Bowl. I still don't think you are. Now, you can bump this up a little bit if they get Aaron Rodgers, but it's just as it stands right now that you hitched your wagon to Aaron Rodgers. And all that comes with that, as we saw how that worked out with the Jets and their coaching staff and front office getting fired because of it.
Well, we have other theories about the head coach getting fired, but that's not a today pod topic.
We could have our own. We could have a conspiracy theory pod that would go off, but I just didn't get over the hump. Not only did you not get over the hump with this draft, I think you're taking a step back in this division, and I think there's a very good shot that the Bengals or the Browns pass you up next year.
Yeah, and I mean, even if it is Mason Rudolph, who I think has done a decent job when he's in there. I mean, you break it down more than I do, but Mason Rudolph is not necessarily the worst option in the world. He'll be all right, but if you're going to have Mason Rudolph, you better have all the other pieces there in front of you. And with obviously Dan Moore got a ton of money elsewhere, so they didn't have to pay up for Dan Moore, who led the league in sacks given up. He led the league in giving up sacks, I believe. James Daniels, you mentioned his injury history. He's still a younger player. He's now here with the Dolphins, I believe. Yep. Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, look, it was good at times. It was never great. So it's the only way you just got to keep pulling that machine at the casino or at the, slot machine until you get what you like, unfortunately. And what they like right now is a guy who has yet to commit anywhere. There's been obviously a stalemate in conversations, and things are just going to be pushed all the way up to training camp. It's no place you want to be as a football team when you don't know who your leader is, because the leader sets the tone for what the culture is. The culture sets the tone for what kind of team you're going to be and how the season will play out. And without a true leader there, unless Mason Rudolph's the guy who's grabbed it by the reins, but how much does it change when Aaron Rodgers shows up?
I don't know, because this is not a good receiving core. You went from what I thought could be good.
Yep. If they got along.
Yeah. To now just DK Metcalf. And we've seen how Aaron Rodgers fares when he doesn't trust other options, because Brandon Hollum in the chat brings up a good point. It's Robert Woods, it's Ben Skoranek, Scotty Miller, Roman Wilson, who they didn't trust to play at all last year, Calvin Austin, who's 5'8". It's a receiving core that has really one guy, one interesting gadget guy in Calvin Austin, and then Rodgers won't be throwing the ball to anyone else is the worry. We saw it in New York. We saw it towards the end in Green Bay. It's just I am very worried about what the Steelers offense is going to look like, especially given how Rodgers was not healthy last year. You don't stay healthy at 41 years old. It's just hard to.
So Arthur Smith is going to have to really get groovy with it. He's going to really have to.
Well, they got to run the ball a lot. I think that's going to be the emphasis. But then you don't have.
But if you are throwing the football, you're going to need some great schemes to be able to get a lot of these guys open. It's not like you're dealing with the Jackson 5 out there.
So for all those reasons, I'm a little worried about the Steelers.
I give them a C. I go harder than you. Yeah.
Baltimore Ravens, last one, your AFC North champs from a year ago. A very status quo offseason in terms of free agents. They just retained, kept Ronnie Stanley there on the roster, added Nuke Hopkins. At this point in his career, if you watched him in KC or Tennessee last season, he is a spot route specialist. The guy is not getting open on his own anymore. He just doesn't have the juice. It is gone, but still has great ball skills, obviously. And Lamar Jackson, we'll see if they pair well together. I bet he barely plays much, if at all, in that offense. The key loss, Patrick McCarry, kind of your versatile guy in the interior there who could play some tackle as well. That one hurts a little bit, but I love this draft. It was one of my favorite drafts, and it's an immediate impact draft too. I think Malachi Starks, Mike Green, year one, could both be in contention for Rookie of the Year with what I saw from them on tape last season. So I thought they added more in the drafts than anyone. I thought they did well to stay where they were atop this division in terms of keeping everyone in the fold. I went A-. It wasn't spectacular, but it was kind of business as usual for the Baltimore Ravens. And this is how you be the Baltimore Ravens.
Pat Ricard, Ronnie Stanley, Ben Cleveland. Leadership. OGs, guys you need in the room. And with, I've played with guys that played with Lamar Jackson and Orlando Brown Jr. in Kansas City. When he was in Kansas City, we would talk about, we compare some of the Mahomes stuff to Jackson. And, this is like whisper conversations. I'd be like, how would he handle that? And Lamar seems like so much fun to play with, such a badass, backyard football, tough as nails. But I still think it helps having a guy like Ronnie Stanley in the building and Pat Ricard. Not only that, but schematically having a fullback, you can do so much. And with the way that the Baltimore Ravens want to operate on offense, I think it's beautiful that they were able to retain those guys. You mentioned the two picks, round 1, round 2, Malachi Starks and Mike Green. Mike Green had a lot of red flags. Apparently he was very open with the Baltimore Ravens because, and this is a lesson for young players. And I'll give you the solo cam here for a second, Harry. If you're a young player and you've gone through something in your life that is regrettable, that maybe put a stain on your reputation or your name, you're embarrassed about it, maybe you had some criminal issue. When you go in for interviews, they're going to know all this stuff. So if you hide it, you look even worse than you did before you came in the room. But if you did it like Mike Green did it, when you went and spoke with the Baltimore Ravens and you were open and honest about it, chances are these teams are going to give you an opportunity or a second chance. Not all of them. Some people draw a hard line in the sand. I played in Chicago. Character was at the top of the list for George McCaskey and their operation. But some of these teams, they just want great football players, and they think they can rely on their leadership to mold you into the man they want you to be. So be honest throughout this process. That's what I got there, Mike. Malachi Starks, great player. We had him slotted to be a Baltimore Raven. He feels like a Baltimore Raven. And that division, you're going to have to confuse and cause chaos for opposing quarterbacks. The other guy, Mike Green, we talked about the character, but he can rush that passer, man. So get after Josh Allen at the line of scrimmage, get after Joe Burrow at the line of scrimmage, and confuse and cause chaos on the back end and plug them in with that freak back there, Kyle Hamilton, and a lot of great stuff will happen.
Yeah, I think what you said there was good advice for not just guys entering the NFL, but just anyone at any point in life. If you've made a mistake and you want to act like it didn't happen, you are going to come off looking bad. You have to own up to it. That is how you progress in life. So just some very good advice there.